The BS Report is a free-flowing conversation that occasionally touches on mature subjects.
First of all,
This is the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
it might be cool, I don't know. And if it's not, I don't
The
care.
BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Bill Simmons works for ESPN. He's also named the Sports Guy, and he writes a comical sports column. He must be a popular dude.
The BS Report.
It's got a real dirty sound, like a rusty steak knife cutting through a well-aged steak.
Now.
Here's Bill Simmons.
Welcome to the BS Report. We were taping this on a Wednesday. On Thursday night, my new favorite show is on Comedy Central. It's called Nathan For You. It's 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. There's been one already, which I think they'll probably run if you're listening to this on Thursday. I'm sure they'll run it before you can get it online. The second episode is really insane, and I was just in disbelief as I was watching it. But Nathan is here right now. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me, Bill.
It's a pleasure.
I'm very excited to be here.
You keep the Canada comedy tradition. You've kept it going. What is it about Canada? Why are there funny people in Canada? Why are there an inordinate amount of funny people from Canada?
I don't know. I guess. I mean, I can't. I don't know why. I guess.
You've no
are
answer.
there a weird amount of funny people from Canada?
Well,
I guess
think
we
of all
have a
the
lot of
SNL people. Like
Yeah.
Mike Myers, Dan Aykroyd.
Maybe it's because we're always kind of in the shadow of a big country that's below us, so we're like we have an inherent weirdness put on us because we're kind of different from that norm of pop culture that we are always seeing. So
Right.
maybe it's something that comes from kind of a natural inferiority complex.
Oh, that's interesting.
But
And then it breeds like self-deprecation.
I'm not an expert on this, so I don't know, but
It was a weird first question coming out of the gate.
it's fine.
I always think of that though
warm up easily.
with Canadian comedy people. I always think about that. It just seems like it's this never-ending factory, which I've
Yeah,
never
I mean,
understood.
there's a lot of really funny people in Canada. There's a lot of funny people down here too, but yeah, I guess a lot of talent that's now famous in America has come from Canada.
Lorne Michaels,
Lauren Michaels,
all the
Jim
SCTV
Carrey,
people.
Mike
Oh, Jim
Myers.
Carrey was Canadian?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, wow. I
Yeah.
mean, if you went Canadian versus American, it would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I guess proportionally there's a lot because Canada's small.
Yeah,
With
if you did if
40
you
million.
created some statistic for per person comedy success or like some ratio, I think Canada wins.
Yeah,
we
there
have,
should-
like,
there should be
250 million
sports
people.
stats for comedy. Like I should have a card and it should be compare my stats to other comedians.
That would be very interesting because I don't know how they would do that because comedy is so subjective.
They wouldn't sell that well.
It wouldn't
definitely,
sell that
those
well.
cards. Yeah, but comedy's subjective, and I don't know. You always get people liking or not liking your stuff. But so is
Well-
everything, right? I guess. Well, sports isn't that much.
No, sports is like that because people argue about athletes all the time. I think the thing about comedy is that it seems like the more successful you are, the more you open yourself up to people not liking you,
Yeah,
which
I
is a
mean,
weird phenomenon. You're almost
that's
better like
something-
being in the shadows.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think like exposure is a weird thing, and with this show that I have, and not a lot of people, probably no one in America knows who I am, but
Well, not yet.
with having a show, you get a lot of people looking at your stuff and criticizing it. And I was, in the lead up to the show airing, I was mentally preparing myself for the worst.
Right. You have to develop a tough skin almost before
I think
the skin
so
comes into play.
because it's just I'm not a comfortable person with. I mean, it's weird that I have a TV show because I hate being on camera, and I'm not comfortable like putting myself out there, which is weird in a way.
Yeah.
But I don't know why I keep pitching projects with myself in it, but it's stupid. But yeah, getting that exposure and having a lot of people chime in on your work is always really hard.
That's bizarre though, because you seem totally comfortable on the show, and like this deadpan thing you have going, where you're just not fazed by however the situation is going.
Yeah.
So how do you explain that? If you're not comfortable, but then you're somehow can roll with any punches and seem totally unfazed.
Well, when I'm on the show and I know I'm doing it I have a certain goal in mind, and I'm trying to create moments with people that are funny, I can go into that zone fairly
So you're like playing a
easily.
character.
A little bit. I think part of what the show is that I think an old version of myself. I mean, your listeners probably have no idea what the show is or anything, but
Well, we're going to explain it.
It's fine. But yeah, I think that personally, like off camera and growing up, I had a lot of difficulty in social situations, and I would panic and I wouldn't be able to really communicate properly. And also I couldn't read subtlety that well. So if someone didn't like me or liked me or thought I was nuts, it would be hard for me to tell. So unless they said it overtly, I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
So part of, I think, what I do in the show and with my comedy in general is I'm almost making fun of that version of me, and I'm creating a world in which subtlety can't exist for other people. So I think if someone doesn't overtly tell me they don't want to do something, then I'm not registering that. So a lot of people...
In the first episode...
So right, in the show I go to real small businesses, and I give them kind of...
Well, I was going to give an example of in the first episode, you create this strategy for a pizza place.
Right.
Which is basically, we'll deliver in 8 minutes or you get a free pizza.
Right.
But the wrinkle is that the free pizza is like an inch long.
Yeah, and an inch big. Yeah, it's a tiny pizza, and they still have to pay...
Tiny circle.
Yeah, in a little box we made.
The box is really funny.
Yeah,
so this one guy won't pay for the pizza.
So we have
and then you go in to convince him that he should pay for the pizza. And at that point, I thought you were going to get the crap kicked out of you.
Well, I guess it's good that the show is dramatic like that. But I try to, so I go to the small businesses, and the goal is to kind of come up with an out-of-the-box idea to market themselves. So if they offered 8-minute delivery, it would,
Yes.
Everyone would call them. And they don't lose any money. The people still have to pay for the big pizza, basically. So they don't lose any money. But when I go to these businesses, a lot of the times, these business owners are really nice, sweet people most of the time. I'm sure that comes across.
Yes.
So, I'll pitch the idea, and you can kind of see on their face that they think it's bad and they don't want to do it. But at the same time, they don't want to hurt my feelings and tell me it's a stupid idea because they're just nice people. So a lot of times it seems like they'll go along with something because they just don't want to offend me or hurt my feelings. And that's always, I think, interesting to watch because it's a lot of shows. I feel like you see real people stuff where you go into situations to get people mad sometimes, but these people, their kindness comes out in a way. But that's what I was talking about with the subtlety doesn't exist. If the owner doesn't say, I don't want to do it, get out of here, I assume he wants to do it, even if his face is kind of like, oh, okay.
So you missed the cues.
I missed the cues, which is kind of a lot of me. I still do a lot. I've gotten better, but I'm not the best at reading people, and I think that I kind of exaggerate that a bit in the show.
Well, we didn't. I mean, we should say now. I didn't even invite you on the podcast. You just showed up.
Yeah,
you sat down.
So
and
I just came in,
rolling with it.
So kind of you to start talking with me because you don't want to hurt my feelings.
Yeah, never even seen your show.
Yeah.
So in that first thing you did, the first idea you came up with was poo yogurt.
Right. The idea was to have a controversial flavor for a frozen yogurt shop, so they would get press out of it.
I thought that was. It's funny on this podcast. We have my friend Kevin Wilds comes on from time to time.
Yeah.
And we come up with something called half-baked ideas, which was his idea, which are basically like ridiculous ideas that also kind of would be a good idea. And now this is basically your show is like watching these half-baked ideas come to life. There's like poo yogurt. Interesting idea. You're drumming up interest in this yogurt place. TV camera crews are going to come. People are going to write articles, and inadvertently they're drawing business to the place. But the yogurt's disgusting.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the fun, I think. Like a lot of times, especially like that's a very childish idea, poo yogurt. And I think when I pitched the idea, I don't think that's necessarily the funny moment, but the fact on the show that we actually go and develop the flavor with a real flavor company.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about
And
that.
they-
How,
yeah.
how did that? So you went to some flavor company.
So we needed to see if, I guess, we could actually make a real poo yogurt. So we found this flavor company, and apparently they have a policy where they can't say no if someone requests for them.
They
to do
literally
something.
can't say no.
That's what the lady said to me on the phone.
Okay.
Which I thought was really funny and perfect for this. And then, so they actually developed a poo flavor extract. And apparently they said these flavor companies, they have a dictionary of ingredients. So they can look up the exact, I don't know how it works, but they know the exact way to make poo and like the exact flavor combination. And they also said, which was really crazy, they have a machine where you can take anything and put it in the top, I guess, and it tells you like the ways to make it. So the flavor, the poo yogurt has no real poo in it, but it is the exact flavor.
It was artificial poo flavoring.
Yeah, exactly.
So at some point, they had to figure out
So it's completely
what
edible.
elements would taste like poo, which it could have almost been its own show.
Yeah, I mean, I was fascinated. We spent a long time there, and they wouldn't let us in certain areas of the lab because I think it's very proprietary, and I don't know, I guess every flavor company must have their own way of doing it, but it was fascinating, and I was so surprised that it could actually be done.
And how long did it take? Like 3 weeks?
I think it took them 2 weeks to develop it for us.
How much did it cost? Was it like a couple $1,000?
That's the producers would have to answer that. I don't know.
Because I was wondering, like, it made me think like just anybody.
Well,
could
they
go
made
to
a
this
batch
company.
for us.
Yeah.
But we didn't order. Normally, I think they deal with industrial size amounts. So when a company gets a flavor, they, I think, order maybe millions worth. I don't know. But for us, they made a small batch because we sweet talked them, I guess. I don't know.
Right. So if somebody wanted to make like watermelon bubblegum yogurt, they would go to this place. This company would figure out what that fake taste is.
Yeah.
Make it. But nobody had ever come up to them and said poo.
No, they said they've never gotten that.
Do you
one
see
before.
sequels? Like, will we have like a cat vomit yogurt? Will we have dead corpse yogurt? Or is this poo is like really, you can't top it?
I mean, it's funny, one idea we had, not necessarily sequels, but I thought it would be fun to do some of like my favorite ideas from this season if we did more in like Russia or some other country. Because I'm just interested to see how
They would react to anything?
I feel like the idea of kind of these like shock marketing ideas is more maybe of an American thing, but I don't know if I don't know. Maybe I just want to travel, an excuse for a vacation.
Maybe that would be a special 1 hour episode at the end of the season or something.
Right. Yeah.
What was that? The second one was in the first episode you had a 7-year-old kid tell you in your ear what to say during a job interview.
Yeah. The second segment was proving that confidence more than intelligence is what leads to success.
Yes.
So I went for a job interview at a real law firm, and unbeknownst to the person interviewing me, I had a 7-year-old in a van outside, and I had an earpiece. He was communicating to me through an earpiece, and I would only say what he said. And
Right.
I was going to prove that if I act confident, I can still get the job. And so,
And then you had your friend, who's your inappropriate friend, then took over
right, yeah, to up it,
to up it.
I had my friend John Benjamin, who's, he's a very funny comedian and actor, but he was feeding me. I told him just make it as hard as possible for me to get the job, and I went into a different interview at a real estate
And he
company.
took that advice.
He took that advice, and he went further than I was comfortable with going, as you'll see if you watch the show.
Yeah, I don't want to step on it too much in case you haven't seen it, but
The pilot's still online on the Comedy Central site, I think, for free, so you can watch it.
and then the third one was the pizza thing. So every show you're gonna have 3 segments. It sounds like, or maybe not.
Well, yeah, in the second episode too, we have the main structure is we kind of go to 2 businesses in the episode, and then we also do kind of a runner that's something unrelated to helping a business, but still connected to the idea of the show, maybe.
Right. Well, I don't want to give away too much of the second episode because I want people to enjoy it. But we should mention you've done some press for it, so we can talk about.
Sure.
The goat thing. So, you decide you're going to make this clip of a pig rescuing a goat in the water.
Yeah.
And take it from there.
Yeah, so in the second episode, we came up with an idea for a petting zoo, and the idea was to create a star animal, kind of like Shamu at SeaWorld.
Really good idea.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's actually, it is a kind of a good idea, because there's a lot of petting zoos around LA, so the idea was, well, this will diversify you. So people, instead of coming to see just a pig, will see your hero pig.
It made me think of The Island of Dr. Moreau with Marlon Brando and Val Kilmer, where they were breeding animals with each other.
Oh,
Maybe
okay.
that's what the petting zoo should do, is just breed one pig and one goat together, and that would be the star animal. But
Yeah, I guess you could have a, I mean, that would be
Goat
crazy.
pig, yeah.
I would definitely go to see that as well.
Anyway, keep going.
That's
I
probably a
interrupted
better
you.
idea, actually. No. So they had a trout pond at the petting zoo, and we came up with an idea of faking it to make it look like one of their pigs jumped in the water to rescue a goat that was kind of like stuck and drowning.
So it becomes a hero pig.
So it would be, and then as if someone filmed it, and then the video would hopefully spread online, and then people would come to the petting zoo because it's a hero pig.
So if I hear this idea, my big reservation would be, one, how do we pull this off? And then two, people wouldn't possibly believe that this actually happened.
Yeah, I would say that's
In that-
probably an average person's. And that was ours too. I
Yes.
mean, I didn't know like how to do it, but for some reason, I called up, animal trainers and stuff like that, and I said, because for some reason we just had this idea where a pig rescuing a baby pig rescuing a baby goat was just funnier than any other animal combination I could think of. And I called up animal trainers, and they said, "Oh, it'd be so much easier if you used a dog." And for some reason, I just thought
You just stuck with the pig, yeah.
Dog, I feel like that's a more normal. Dogs rescue people, but pigs don't.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So they said it's going to be hard, and they kind of said that. My idea was, I thought if scuba divers are underneath guiding the animals, then that would do it. And then we had a scuba diver under the goat, but apparently if you have one under the pig, it doesn't work. It will slip out.
I've heard that.
But when you put a pig in water, they said, oh yeah, it's common knowledge, of course. When you put a pig,
So these are probably the 3 or 4 of the dumbest things you've ever learned in your life as you're
I learned a
working
lot
on
of like
this.
weird
Yeah.
stuff on this show that
Yeah.
I probably knowledge I'll never need to use again. And I don't, yeah.
So you had like 20 people building this track because you had to keep the pig
Yeah.
within the track.
We built like an invisible underwater track, and there was a scuba diver, holding the goat, and the animals had to be, over the course of 4 days, they had to get used to the water. 'Cause
Yeah.
the important thing was that it had to be safe for the animals too, right? So
They used to, the
slowly had
Humane
to-
Society was there.
The Humane Society was there, and we had to get them used to the water, so they'd put them in the water for 5 seconds and take them out. And so by the time we actually filmed it, the animals were very comfortable in the water. And the goat's kind of crying, and we had to add in some of those sounds in post-production, or like when we edited it.
Oh, you
because-
fudged some of the noises?
Of the goat,
Yeah.
because it was too comfortable in the water, and we wanted to make it sound like it was, desperate. So we recorded sounds of a goat kind of yelling by moving him away from his friend. Like we took his friend out of sight, and then he got sad.
Was the Humane Society okay with this or no?
He didn't say much.
They can get touchy.
There was a guy, he was like, he had an official uniform and this like beige uniform, and he had this giant mustache, and he just kind of stood there very stoically observing.
That's
I
what they
assume
do.
if we did something wrong, he would speak up,
Yeah.
but
Take the hat off the goat.
he was
Take it off.
intimidating. Right.
Yeah. It's a weird job.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
I guess
weird
it
that we
is.
care more about the welfare of animals on like movie and television sets than we do about real people.
Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah,
Because
that is interesting.
if you see an animal get hurt,
We don't care about homeless people, but we care about a pig in a Comedy Central sketch.
apparently on that show House of Cards, and I haven't seen it,
I haven't seen it either. I'm
but
saving it.
I saw the first bit.
Yeah.
This isn't spoiling anything,
No.
I don't think. But I don't know if he like kills a dog or something. And I heard that they couldn't show someone like killing a dog, but they can show people killing people,
30 people, and
so they kind of cut away when they showed. I don't know. We're getting into boring territory.
It's
No
not
one cares
boring.
about
America's
cards.
weird. America's a weird
Cards,
country.
come on.
Yeah.
Yes.
I want to watch that. So anyway, so you pulled this off.
Yes.
It happens.
We made
works.
it, and it doesn't look like crazy like a rescue, but the pig kind of runs into the goat.
It
and
worked.
They get out.
Yeah.
And we put it online. I just put it on YouTube, and then.
So when you put it on YouTube, what was your goal at that point? Were you hoping people would just organically find it?
I don't know. I mean, in the segment, we basically our plan just went as far as we'll put it online and see what happens.
Okay,
Like,
so that was actually part of the sketch initially was this is
put
the
it
final
on.
piece. We put it online and then we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. And, in the show, we're fine with ideas not working out because we make that part of the story. And so either way, we didn't really care.
So what'd you title the clip?
It said pig rescues baby goat.
And you didn't email it to one person.
No, I mean, the only people that knew about it, I guess, were the people that worked on the show. But we just put it on YouTube, and then
So you go to bed and you wake up the next morning, and what happens?
I mean, a website I go to sometimes is Gawker. So I literally just, went on there and I saw our video, and I was thinking, oh my God, this is absurd. This is so funny. How did this happen? And then I saw on Reddit, or someone told me it's all over Reddit. I guess people were posting and it was up on the front page. And at that point, it's kind of scary because, okay, this is a bit out of our control. Then I got to work and someone said, oh, I saw that on CNN. Someone who didn't actually know about it, that it was fake. And then we saw it on all these morning shows, and then that evening it was on the nightly news with Brian Williams.
That was my favorite part. Because you would think they would have had editorial standards.
Well, yeah, I'm hesitant to, comment on what they should be doing. But it was crazy, and I was actually scared because that whole day we didn't know what to do. And, it's one thing when you're making a little show and you do something, but when something becomes like this national thing and you're the only one that knows it's fake. I mean, it was really funny.
Well, what were you scared of? Were you scared you'd get in trouble with Comedy Central, or
I was
go
scared
to jail?
I wasn't scared in that way. I was scared at like the way the world worked and the access that we had by not really doing anything. And it was, I don't know, I wasn't like, in fear or anything, but I was astonished. And, when people you expect the news to be this very legitimate, powerful thing. And when they're talking about something and that's not right.
Yeah.
It's scary in a weird way, but.
So it made you lose faith in the process of
it changed my
TV journalism a little bit.
I don't know about that, but it definitely changed my mindset about. I was like, whoa, I guess it's pretty easy to get stuff on the news. But I don't know about faith because I guess you have to
have faith in the first place.
You have to. And it was, I thought there was some sort of like sweetness to the idea of people just want to believe stuff is real. And I thought a lot about, I mean, you can't just go through life questioning everything and like looking into everything and being like, that's fake, or always looking for something to be fake. You'd be stressed out. And I feel like there's people like that are. So I don't know how I feel about it because it's kind of nice that, you believe things. And the funniest part is like, there's still people out there who saw that video who will never probably know it's not real, because even though news is out that it isn't, a lot of people saw that and, the original video. So,
why people thought it was real? Because it was so insane that a pig was saving a goat. They probably couldn't have imagined somebody would be able to fake that. I think that's why. I
And it's so-
it took you 20 people to be able to fake that.
And it's also
20
like,
people
why
in 4
would
days.
someone fake that?
You got
That's
that
what
part
I would
too.
think. If this was fake, why would you do
Yeah.
it? What a waste of time
Right.
and energy. The craziest thing was this debate that started online where people were saying it was people were using it to prove their mandates, where
Oh.
kind of vegans were saying, like, see, this proves that animals are more intelligent than humans, or
Oh.
more intelligent than we thought. And science blogs were posting it and saying, this is proof. A lot of people were saying, like, we're terrible to animals, and this here proves that animals are smarter than we thought,
Yeah.
and smarter than us. And people were saying a human wouldn't jump in to save that goat, but an animal did.
Mm.
So it was crazy, the people that congregated around it and used it as kind of a tool to sell a point, which was maybe the funniest part that no one's actually really talked about.
So
yet
you
about-
validated all of these people's feelings about different things, but yet it was a totally fake video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to see that debate happen.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I know.
I like the fact that people are still probably passing on the link thinking it's real.
Yeah, I mean, because definitely more people saw that than probably are watching the show or reading the New York Times article that talked about it.
So the New York Times article was like, I think February 27th? Somewhere. It was the end of February. It was
yeah.
like when you're promoting your show.
Yeah, it came out the day, a couple.
What did you even think about maybe not even telling people until like ever?
To be honest, I wanted just the show to air as is, and I didn't want it to be a story that came out before.
Right.
But we're doing a very low budget show, and I think the interests of a lot of people are you got to throw out there whatever you have to try to get promotion for the show.
Right. It becomes a hook for here's this new show that's coming. They were responsible for that pig goat.
It's ironic
video.
because that's the type of thing that in the show my character would, do, like, oh, you got to promote, you got to do stuff. But
Right.
the thing I liked the most about it was that we made this video and it did this crazy viral thing, and no one knew, no one knew it was fake or anything, and we're not using it to promote anything. And
Right.
it's just, I just like that idea that
Yeah.
this is the type of thing that I feel like marketers and people try to do all the time, is to create like a weird thing that will go viral to promote something. And I liked the idea that we didn't use it for anything.
Yeah.
So, but
Well, initially
you
you
got to
used
make
it.
compromises and stuff.
You used it to advertise for the petting zoo,
Yes.
and then
well,
you ended up the petting zoo wasn't in the clip.
right. And if you see the episode, I guess you'll see why.
Yeah.
You saw, right?
Yeah.
So there's more to the story actually
Yes.
that's out there now, and also, the person, there's a voice in the video too, and no one's actually talked about that and how it all ties in. So there's a lot more elements to the story in the show that are not out there. So it'll be pretty interesting to see it in context, I think, because it's a lot funnier, I think, than how it's portrayed.
So
now.
when did you know that this was the show you wanted to do? At what point in your career?
This show?
Yeah, it seems like this has been brewing for a while. In
Well,
some
we
form.
shot the pilot a while ago, or about a year and a half ago. But I used to work on a show in Canada, and I would do,
What was that show?
it's called This Hour is 22 Minutes, and every week I would have a 3-minute segment where I would basically do interviews with real people. I'd kind of interview experts kind of in the guise of, it's kind of like a Canadian Daily Show type thing.
Yeah.
But I would interview people, and I learned how to kind of get into scenes and bring reactions out of people that were subtle but interesting. And I think this show was kind of a way to do an expanded version of that.
You were in Dimitri Martin's show too, right?
Yeah, I wrote on that show, and that's where I met Michael Coman, who I created this show with. And so after I was done on that show, I pitched, a version of this show to Comedy Central, and then Michael and I figured out what's a way to add more elements and make it more interesting. And we like the marketing world. I think is a very fun area to make fun of. And I went to business school. I did my undergrad in. I did a Bachelor of Commerce degree before I started doing comedy.
Yeah.
So I've always wanted to kind of make fun of that world a bit, because that mindset and that attitude is fun to go in, where you're thinking of the world in a very specific way. It's all about promoting, and sometimes the focus in that area is like people put less emphasis on, wait, how does this idea make the world a better place? And it's more about, well, this will help business, and that's
Right.
the important thing. And I think that attitude is kind of destructive and weird, but it's fun to emulate that, maybe.
So I'm guessing focus groups. I haven't seen anything other than the first 2 episodes.
Yeah.
I'm guessing there's a focus group something at some point
We
during
did
the
a
season.
we did a focus group in the first episode,
Poo
the
yogurt.
yogurt, where we did a taste to make
But
sure.
I'm saying like a big one, because this focus groups drive me crazy. I hate them.
Yes, I used to work at a company that recruited people for focus groups when I was in high school, actually.
They're usually people who don't have a job, who are very available.
It's really funny because when you call these people up, they think at first you're a telemarketer, and then they remember they're in your database and you're paying them money to come in. But it is funny. I do feel there's a lot of, I mean, the company I worked for was mostly, they would often get their family and friends to come in for the focus groups. Like
Yeah.
there was a weird insider's politics. So all the data that these big companies were getting were totally like
Nephews and cousins and
fake.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I don't know. I think there's a lot of,
I hate focus groups. I
have
remember
you been in one?
when I was writing for a Jimmy Kimmel show,
Yeah.
like about 6 months in, they had this giant focus group thing, and they basically broke down the first 6 months of the show, and they hated all the stuff that was like quirky, original, anything that we had come up with that was out of the box, and the stuff they liked was the stuff that like every other show was doing, and just like we don't know why does he start the show behind the desk, and why doesn't he wear a tie, and it's just like basically those focus groups just want everything to look like everything else,
Right.
and that's the goal.
Yes.
It was just discouraging, and it made us all think like, they're just rattling off these lists of things we're doing wrong, and we're like, are we sure we're doing these wrong? And if you have to listen to some of this stuff, but I think if you listen to too much, it ends up becoming sterile.
Yeah. I think that in general, when something new or different comes out, there's definitely,
People are freaked out.
or they want to wait for other people to say they like it before confirming that they actually like it. Maybe
Right.
people are disconnected from their actual emotions a little bit sometimes.
Some of the focus group stuff with Jimmy, I mean, made sense. Like they liked they're used to seeing a talk show host start a show wearing a tie, coming out of a curtain or a background or whatever, and standing there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you deviate from that, they can't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, you just have to accept that and say, well, that's how we should start the show, because
Yeah.
the last thing we want to do is antagonize people we want to watch it. And then another thing we did was we had guest hosts back then. Like every week was a different guest host, which I thought was great. And they were hit or miss. There's no question. Like we'd have some great ones, some half decent ones. But what you realize is that people are at 11:30. Most of them are half asleep,
Oh, yeah.
and they need continuity. They need to like turn on a show and know it's going to look relatively the same every time. And the key is to make the content, and this is something Jimmy's done better than anybody, make the content within that structure different every night,
Yeah.
but make the structure the same. And they need that host to come out the same way every night. They need the band leader and the people over there to be the same, because that's what they're used to. And if you mess that up, they get freaked out.
Yeah, I noticed that a lot with TV, is that's a very important part, that familiarity. And
Yes, with late night. And I think it's because people are half asleep.
I think with a lot of shows too. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. Well, I remember when it really clicked with me how late night shows, or the importance of it, as I came home from work after working like a really long job
Yeah.
here, and I would come home like exhausted at 10 or whatever every night. And I watched, it was when the Jay Leno show was at 10 o'clock or something. And
Right.
I like turned it on, and I just sat there watching it, and I wasn't laughing,
Yeah.
but it was pleasant. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And I realized that this is what you want when you're exhausted and you come home and you just want to watch something that's pleasant and kind of recaps the day. And you don't want to have your mind blown. You just want to
Right.
you just want to see someone talk about the day that's charming and fine.
You want to turn your brain off.
Right. And I mean, different shows, I don't know if that's necessarily the best way to make a show, but that's when I realized, I understand that type of show.
That's why Jay Leno plays so well on airplanes.
Right.
They'll always run Jay Leno on airplanes because people are like half asleep. They don't want to be challenged.
Yes.
They don't want anything too weird. It's the same dynamic with airplane movies.
Right.
Like you don't put There Will Be Blood on an airplane.
Yeah.
You pick like something very straightforward and basic.
Right. Yeah. It's because I a lot of times when I watch shows, I just do not understand the appeal to anyone. And
Yeah.
I'm struggling. Even if I don't like it, I want to understand why people like it.
Yeah.
So when I have like a turning point, I'm like, I understand now why people would like this. It's interesting.
You know what's like that is Law and Order, which I've never
yeah.
gotten into, but
I'm not.
I think
know.
that it's like 17, 18 seasons or something, and all of them have the beginning, middle, and end, and the relative same theme, and people just love it. And there are people out there who have seen every single one, and they just dive into that world, and the actors change. Like, the actors don't really matter.
It's like a soap opera.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
The actors can just change every 3 years, and it doesn't matter. What matters is the structure.
Yeah.
But so what kind of feedback did you get for that first episode? I mean, it's a little
It was
weird.
really good, actually, surprisingly, because I thought, a lot of my friends and people I work with really like the show, but people also have maybe more specific comedy tastes that work
Right.
in comedy. So it was really cool to see when we put it out there and just seeing how the normal Comedy Central audience responded to it. And it was like 98% positive. It was
Good.
really crazy. So that was nice to see. I hope more people watch it, but
Well, it didn't get a lot of promotion.
Well, no one knows me, and no one should
Yeah.
know me. But hopefully, if it's good week after week, people will tune in and they'll like it.
My feeling with these things is that things build, and
Yeah.
somebody tells somebody, or like you do this podcast and the New York Times article, and you hit more and more people that wouldn't have known about the show, and then they tell people, and it's kind of the way you want to do it in this day and age, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Like
Yeah,
you start out, if they had spent $20 million promoting the show and plastering you everywhere, and you're on every talk show, then people are going to automatically not want the show to work, because they'll be like, "Who's this
Maybe.
guy? Why is he
Yeah.
getting all this attention?"
Right. You gotta root for me. I'm the underdog.
Yeah, maybe that should have been one of your things.
Yeah.
You're giving advice to yourself about how to
Right.
turn
come
a-
across as like
yeah.
meek and pathetic and
You could say like
no
you're,
promotion and see
you're,
if people watch.
you're missing a leg, all this stuff. So how
did
many
you-
episodes are you doing?
Just 8.
8, and that's it. And then you find out if you've been renewed.
I guess. Yeah. I don't know how that stuff works. Really.
I hope you
I'm
get
new to it
renewed.
all. Oh, thanks, Bill. That's nice.
This is I can't wait to see what. So
We do some crazier stuff. Like it
I
gets
figure.
even-
I mean, just from the 2 episodes, I could tell.
Yeah, I think every week we do at least one thing that's pretty crazy.
So you have to come up with 3 things basically every show.
It's loosely, but some episodes, what happens in maybe one of our segments is so unexpected or so different that we actually stretch it out and make a longer episode. The 4th episode, we go to a gas station, and my idea is so they could advertise the cheapest gas in the country to charge $1.75 after rebate, because that rebates allow you to advertise a lower price.
Yeah.
But the conditions of the rebate are that instead of mailing it in, you have to drop it off in person at the top of a local mountain. So I didn't know really what would happen there, but we actually had people who did it and went to the mountain, and we kind of like chartered a van there. And then what happened up there was pretty crazy and unexpected, and it went on a bit longer than we thought.
So you just ran with it.
So we ran with it, and it was pretty unique. And that episode, I think, evolves into something different than what the show does normally too. So yeah, there's always surprises because I put myself into situations that I actually don't know what's going to happen because of the real people element. So I'm totally happy to run with stuff if it is interesting and funny.
Did you do stuff that just didn't work? Like you filmed stuff that just couldn't be on the show?
Yeah, we have a segment later in the season, in the second to last episode, where we kind of like run through some of the failed ideas that
Failed. That's funny.
or just failed for different reasons,
Yeah.
and they're just kind of pretty funny. Some of those ones are actually good, but
What was the one that you were the most disappointed failed?
We had one idea where it was for a bar, and bars can get in trouble for negligence if they allow someone to drink and then they drive home and get into an accident.
Yeah.
So as a way of preventing that, it would be to have a street magician outside the restaurant performing a trick that allows them to secretly test people's blood alcohol levels. And basically it was like a wand that we made that had a breathalyzer
Yeah.
thing. So we'd do a trick and then someone would blow in the wand and like just blow like to make the magic work or whatever.
Yeah.
So they'd blow and then you could read their blood alcohol levels, and the trick involved getting their keys before you did that. So then if they were above the limit,
You wouldn't give the keys
I used
back.
to do magic, so
Yeah.
I did it for that one.
You used to do magic?
Yeah, sorry, that's another.
All
Yeah,
right, well-
yeah, that's a whole other.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
when I was like 13 to 20, basically, I did shows, and that's how I made money. And in high school, and
What?
yeah.
All right, wait, finish that story, and then I want to get into the magic.
Oh, basically, so we did it, but then I had the guy's keys, and he was like, "Give me my keys back," and because he's like, "I need to get into my apartment."
Yeah.
But I couldn't give it to him because he was over the limit, so I drove him home.
Yeah.
And he lived like an hour away, and I drove him home in his car, and then I made him. I also couldn't give him his keys once we were there because I was worried he would go out and drive again.
Yeah.
So I had to wait. I stayed and waited till he was asleep, till he like really went to sleep,
And then you let yourself out?
and I sang him like a nursery rhyme and stuff. He was really annoyed.
And that didn't work as for the show?
Oh, I mean, we show that happening, but I mean, the idea, I guess, that's kind of like the hole in it.
Yeah.
I thought you meant like just concepts that didn't really pan out, but
But that sounds like
it
that
always
panned
works
out.
for the show.
I feel like that panned out.
Yeah, regardless of if it works or not, the idea, it pans out for the show because we make it interesting no matter what.
Right.
So,
All right, back to magic.
are you a fan of magic?
Like, how deep did you go?
Whoa, you're good at avoiding answering questions.
No, I
no,
wouldn't
it's
say
fine.
I'm
We
a
don't have to get
fan of
into it.
magic. I'm saying I'm always fascinated by how people cross that line and get really into it.
Well, here's my big
Because
theory.
I feel like the people who do it are a little bit, there's something mystical about them.
Well, of course, like realizing now, of course, I would do it because I had this issue where I couldn't talk to people, and this is like such a
Yeah.
crutch, like a social crutch.
Yeah.
If you can show someone a trick, it's an excuse to talk to them. It's an excuse to. So I was just clearly got into it for that reason, and
Yeah.
it was just to have girls kind of be impressed by something you do was cool. But I did it at birthday parties and weddings and bar mitzvahs.
You got paid?
Yeah, I got paid, and I was part of the local magic circle. I took
The local magic circle. What the hell is
a
that?
huge laugh out there. Jesus.
What is the local magic circle?
It's where magicians meet
What?
every month.
This sounds like this should be in your show. I want to go. I want to meet the local magician shirt. Does LA
There's
have a local magician circle?
I'm sure. I think every city has every kind of major city has a magic circle.
Jacoby, that's a YouTube clip for us. Local magician circle.
It's
Get it done.
It's a funny world, but I do think that, and this is probably people wouldn't agree with this, but I have been thinking about this a lot, and I think that magic in 7 years will be mainstream cool again.
Wow.
Yes.
So you think that
I think-
Copperfield had a lot of damage from Copperfield?
I think it started maybe with him, and then people started making fun of magic in this very specific way where it's just this absurd, like,
Yeah.
men prancing around in weird clothes
Outfits,
doing stuff with
look
silks.
like figure skaters.
I know Arrested Development did it, and now there's this movie coming out with Steve Carell,
Yeah.
which looks really funny, with Jim Carrey. But I think that, like, for magic to survive, there's so many magicians are these, like, old-fashioned kind of... I feel like they use the trick as a bit of a crutch.
Yeah.
So the trick's always impressive, and that's an excuse for them to have a terrible personality.
Yes.
So there's jokes that are, like, from the turn of the last century
Right.
that are still used in magic by magicians, because no one ever says they're not depending on a laugh working. They're just depending on amazed. I saw this magician perform, and I'm still a fan of good magic, even though it's sometimes hard to find, but this magician was doing card magic at this table, and it had these like yellow tassels in it, and he pulled up in the middle of the trick. He stopped and pulled up one of the yellow tassels on the table, and then stood up and like put his crotch beside it like that, and like pulled his eyes back like to do an Asian face, and he was like, "Oh, it's my ding dong," or something like that. Like, it was absurd.
Oh my God.
Yes. And I was trying to show my friends, like, oh, like, let's go see some magic. This will be good. And
this guy went back to the 1890s
like,
first comedy.
Sorry. Well, it's like he's doing tricks that are kind of impressive, but he has this patter that, like, that joke might fly in the 1800s. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe like about 1950.
I feel like as an audience member, you're conflicted because you're like, wow, what he's doing is impressive, but that, like, joke is so terrible.
So you're saying at some point people are going to merge modern day comedy with magic.
I also think at a certain point, once you've made fun of magic so much, it's not going to be interesting to make fun of anymore. But also I think for magic to survive in any way, it has to evolve into something beyond this punchline. So I really think those types of magicians are going to be pushed aside, and
probably already have been.
And probably already have been, and because there's magic that is out there that people don't know about, where I feel like it's like seeing magic in the old days, like in the 1900s or something, or the early 1900s, where people kind of believed it was real, and there are people doing stuff like that now. I just saw a show at the Geffen Playhouse where these guys, it's called Nothing to Hide, and these guys really do a magic show that's they do basically only card tricks, but it's done in such a non-cheesy way.
Yeah.
And it's just, you're genuinely impressed and amazed and charmed by the people. So I think if more magicians like that come about, so that's my prediction, 7 years is my guess.
So you're buying stock in the magic industry.
If I could buy stock in magic, I would put all my money in right now. Because I think it can't. I think the reputation of magic cannot get worse than it is now.
This is probably true.
Because I ask you, and this happens with anyone. I was on another radio show, and I brought up. Come on, Bill. I
thought we had something.
You didn't even see my. All right. No, I brought up magic, and they kind of like laughed me out of the room. And I think when it gets to that point, I mean, you know, something's got to turn around, or else magic just won't exist anymore. That's my prediction. I'm saying it everywhere now because people are going to play this clip in 7 years and be like, that guy was right.
We'll put it on YouTube.
Yeah. I think good magic is so good that I think.
Well, what you described with how people do the routines that just have no correlation to anything that people talk like now, or the jokes we make or anything. You're not a baseball fan, probably. You're not a baseball fan?
I don't follow baseball.
Right. So baseball announcers are like this.
Right.
The banter between baseball announcers is out of like 1940.
Yeah.
And nobody's stopped it for some reason. And the jokes they'll tell and the way they interact has no correlation with announcing in any other sport or anything. And it'll be a lot like, I don't know. And I think it's because all the people are old, and it's the way they were kind of, the other people did it. So somebody will come up and they'll be like, you know, here's David Ortiz, 320 last year. He's a big boy, isn't he? You know, and then the other guy will make some joke that's not a joke, and it's just super awkward the whole time, and nobody's ever done anything about it.
Huh? Why do you think it happens? Is
I don't know.
On the major leagues?
It's just major leagues. I don't know why. Nobody's ever really tried to prevent it, but that's what reminded me of the Magic thing. But here's the thing with Magic. David Blaine and Copperfield both got, like, I heard stories about David Blaine. I have a friend who was friends with David Blaine and Leo DiCaprio for some reason. He grew up with David Blaine, and then David Blaine was best friends with Leo DiCaprio, and he'd been out with both of them at the same time.
Sure.
He said David Blaine would get women over Leo DiCaprio, and that he had something about him that women just gravitated to, and no matter who was in the room, he was getting the women.
Just that kind of cool.
I don't know what it
demeanor.
is. Is it a weird magician thing? Or is it like a Jedi mind trick thing? Or is like, are women intrigued by like magicians are dangerous?
He's probably an actual kind of cool guy that women like.
But there's got to be some danger element to magicians. With women, like they're afraid I'm going to be with this guy and he's going to hypnotize me and I'm going to wake up 3 days later in a trunk.
I mean, even if they're kind of impressed in that initial thing, if you actually went home with a magician, you would just see all these like dumb props and gadgets. And then if you spent time with him, he would just have a deck of cards out at dinner and kind of practicing a move over and over and showing you tricks constantly, and you'd be immediately turned off and leave.
Do you think David Blaine took magic too far with like some of the weird stuff he did, like hanging out in a box for a week? Like he almost took magic in a different direction.
I mean, he's always, I guess, fascinating to watch the stuff he does because some of his stuff, it seems like, doesn't always go right.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't know what... I mean, I guess that's not a magic trick if you're just in a box.
No, it's like a survivalist trick.
Yeah.
Like, to me, a magic trick is like you get carried up in a box and you're dangling over the Staples Center or something.
Yeah.
But then they bring the box back down and you're not in it anymore. That's a magic trick.
Yes, where you disappear or something.
Yeah, you
happens.
disappeared or the box blew up and then you're on the ground.
On my show, actually, later in the season, we have an episode where I do an escape for real.
Really?
And it's in a way making fun of those types of things, but it's also something that has never been done in any capacity before. And it's pretty...
All right, don't tell me anything.
I won't tell you more about it, but you should watch that episode for
Would
sure.
you buy stock in the comedy hypnosis genre, or no? Do you feel like that's a different genre entirely? Because
is that like hypnotists where they make you act like a chicken or something?
Yeah, they always have in college. You always had the hypnotist come, and he always made somebody like walk like a duck.
I was in high school, and the hypnotist came, and I did it, but I kind of felt like I was playing along. It was a weird zone. Like, I remember everything that happened, but he put you in a headspace where I think you'll feel like you're dumb if you don't play along.
Yes.
So it's not like I didn't have a memory, but I just did it. I don't know why.
So you think it's like Stockholm Syndrome?
Maybe they're giving people, like, it's more giving people permission to be a goof, and so people do it.
Right.
But there's definitely, I don't know much about hypnotism, but if you do it well, there's a guy named Darren Brown who's a UK kind of magician hypnotist who does it very well. He's very good. He, I think, is one of those people that the way he presents magic and hypnotism is almost like, I think, how people believed it in the 1800s, where they thought someone really was doing something for real.
It was like mystical.
He presents it as he's able, like, psychologically to control people.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating because you believe that he actually has this ability the way he presents it, because it doesn't break kind of laws of physics and, laws of the world where there's some sort of trick involved. He kind of tells you how he does things, and it's unsure if that's actually the way he does it. I would encourage people to... He doesn't need promotion. He's very famous.
Not many magician/hypnotists.
I don't know. I mean, I'm not super entrenched in the magic world anymore, so I can't really comment on the state of it. I have my opinions.
Now you have me all fascinated.
I know. It's like, for once, you see me like worked up about... I can't talk about baseball and stuff like you can, but these weird fascinations I have start to come out.
I've always been fascinated by the magic industry. I also remember, like, growing up, magic seemed like it was a much bigger thing, and like you'd be a plot occasionally on Love Boat or Fantasy Island or something, like a magician would come in and things would get screwed up.
Yeah,
that's kind of gone
probably
by the
the
wayside.
Start of when people started being
when
like,
the wheels
this
came
is
up.
Stupid.
Yeah.
Because if you do look at a lot of magic, I get embarrassed because I sometimes encourage people to watch magic, and I'll bring them to the Magic Castle or something, and you see some you'll see good, really amazing good magic, but once in a while you'll see someone who's just so cheesy and terrible, and I'm embarrassed because I'm like, oh well, not that exactly, but there is good magic.
I still blame, I think, David Copperfield getting involved with Claudia Schiffer was a seminal moment for magic. It really made people mad. They couldn't handle it, and they turned on magic. I think that was part of it. They were like, it was the same.
Magic is so easy to make fun of.
Yeah.
It's like Magic has just been asking for it.
Well,
it's so easy.
Maybe when Nathan For You becomes a big hit, and you get that power where they go to, you're like, all right, now you got to create more shows. That's your moment because you've already bought all the Magic stock. Right. Now you create a Magic show to actually help your Magic
pump and
stock.
dump the stock.
Yeah. You get it going. You create a show, and then you point everyone to the YouTube clips where you talked about how great. Do you think with the Magic industry, like the YouTube and all this stuff, giving away the secrets, you can find so much stuff on the internet now about how they do tricks. It feels like that would hurt the mystique.
I've heard arguments, though, from people inside Magic that say that's not necessarily a bad thing because it forces a lot of these cheesy magicians that rely on secrets to innovate something new. And that's the only way Magic can really evolve is if people start seeing tricks that they're not familiar with, Yeah. And so, I don't know. I remember that Magic special came out where it was like the secrets of Magic revealed on Fox, and the Magic world got really. I was doing it at the time, and they got really.
They did that. That would happen with wrestling too, when they'd have like professional wrestling secrets revealed, and the wrestling community would get all upset.
Maybe that's a bit different
because wrestling's fake.
Well, unless some people. I saw something about wrestling, or I was watching some documentary, and they were recapping this moment where Vince McMahon, he was depressed, and then it was part of the show, like a Raw event or something.
Yeah.
And he went into his limo. They filmed him walking out into his limo all sad, and then he got in, the limo blew up, just like giant thing. And then fans there were calling 911.
Oh, God.
And they were like, oh, my God, Vince McMahon's limo blew up.
Yeah.
And it was so funny that, you assume, everyone knows it's fake, but they enjoy the drama of it, that people get caught up into it so much that they're confused.
I remember the day I realized wrestling probably was fake was when Hacksaw Jim Duggan and the Iron Sheik were arrested together for marijuana possession. And they were in a big wrestling feud at the time. They were traveling in a car. I was like, boy, that's weird. These guys are in a big bad feud. Why are they traveling together? And then I finally was like, I can't fight it anymore.
How old were you? Was this just last year?
A little too old to be shocked by that. Yeah, it was like, I don't know, 50 and 16.
There was something on Netflix where they recap like the weirdest moments in WWF or something. Yeah. WWE now, I guess. And I followed wrestling for a bit, but there was one thing that they used to do where this ref he got an injury and then he got sad, like he got depression, and that was part of the show. And every week he would commit suicide in a new way.
That happened in WWE?
Yeah.
I don't remember that.
I don't know what it was, but they showed like one thing. There was like an industrial fan, and he's like, I just can't live anymore. And he like ran into the fan, and they panned, and it like squirted blood everywhere. And then the next week he'd be there again and kill himself in a different way. He'd throw
Sounds
a
like
toaster
Kenny
in
South Park.
Right. It's like there seemed to be a phase where they weren't even trying to pretend.
Jeez.
It's really funny.
All right, so we're going to go because you have stuff to do.
Well, I've been taking up so much of your time.
10:30 p.m., Comedy Central. Nathan For You. How'd you come up with the title?
Thursday.
Good title.
Oh, thanks.
I'm a big fan of titles. Jacoby's the title expert at Grantland, but I'm a big appreciator of titles. I thought it's a strong one.
The guy who I originally pitched the show with, I think he suggested it, but it was initially going to be something different, but then my friend was like, you got to put your name in the title.
Right.
And that wasn't my instinct, and then I decided to go with this one.
And we should mention Ben Hoffman's show at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, that's before
Comedy
my show.
Block. 1 hour new guy comedy block.
Yeah, so it's
with names in the titles. The Ben Show and then
Nathan
For You.
Thursday.
Yeah, but definitely this podcast is coming out on Thursday. Definitely watch the show.
Tonight.
So it'll be tonight. When you're listening to this, you will hear it. Nathan Fielder, a pleasure.
Thanks so much for having me.
Good luck with your quest to get Magic going.
Oh.
I'm behind you. I might buy some stock with you.
I mean, I don't really care.
No, you kind of care a little bit.
I don't care that much.
I care a tiny bit.
I got worked up. Thanks, Bill.
So I get to sign off. Whoa!
Thank you for downloading the BS Report with Bill Simmons.
Too much. Fine.
Check out more podcasts at the iTunes Music Store or at PodCenter at ESPNRadio.com.
Peace out.